So Illinois state lawmakers, they were supposed to adjourn Friday and wrap up all business that they wanted to get done before going home for the summer. One of those things includes the budget, but that didn't happen Friday. So lawmakers are set to come back starting Wednesday, which means they can also bring up a whole host of other bills that are either in one chamber or the other and advance those. Now, the budget, typically they're always in until May 31st through the Memorial Day weekend. Apparently, they wanted to not do that and adjourn May 19th. But again, they didn't have a budget, so they're going to come back this week and craft that and pass it so taxpayers actually know what's going to happen. But they can also pass a whole host of other measures, including House Bill 676. House Bill 676 is an omnibus bill that does a variety of things. Number one, it would change the orders of protection procedures for people who have orders of protection against them, and it would essentially say that only law enforcement can take the firearms that somebody has if they have an OP against them. These so-called red flag laws that actually are being challenged in federal courts. So that's one component of this omnibus bill. But another component would create a task force, just a task force, to evaluate the possibility of requiring firearm owners to have insurance. And what would that look like? Well, there are already some options out there. And to talk about this in further detail, Kirk Evans with U.S. LawShield. He joins us now with Springfield's Morning News on 92.7 WMAY, Springfield's News and Talk. Kirk, thanks for taking time, and let's get into it about this idea of mandating insurance. Your thoughts?
Oh, good morning, Greg. So a number of other states have already done this, but they have not done it in the fashion proposed by House Bill 676. So it was sort of a ready, fire, aim approach in these other states, and they proposed requiring firearm owners to get insurance, but no policies were available within the states. And it would be years. So, for instance, in California, there's a jurisdiction that mandated insurance, no policies available, and in order to get a policy admitted there, you're probably looking at a 1 to 2 year process. So this task force, if things work like everybody's planned, hopefully they can work through those things, and if they're going to require insurance, actually have some insurance available for folks to get.
So when it comes to what's available right now, talk about U.S. LawShield and what you guys offer.
Okay, sure. So we're a legal defense for self-defense program. We provide for a small monthly fee if you use a gun or any other legal weapon in self-defense. We provide you an attorney from start to finish, and that is available in Illinois. But the component that the legislature is looking at is more of a liability component for, say, negligently having an accidental discharge or things like that, which would cover damages in the event that there's such an incident. And we don't know until this task force is done and then a law is proposed, we don't know what that language would look like. So, U.S. LawShield will definitely try to offer something when it comes down, but we don't know what it's going to look like just yet.
So there's a clear difference, though, between liability for even the possibility, and this is just all speculating here. Say you have a firearm and it was stolen from your house, and it's found to be used in the commission of a crime in a different county somewhere across the state of Illinois, and should you have insurance for that reason? Talk about the difference between the liability that could be speculated in whatever Illinois mandates and the liability protection in the self-defense arena when it comes to, say, you use a firearm in self-defense in your home or out in public, and somebody's injured, maimed, or a fatal incident happens.
That is a great point, especially your first point. So I don't think anybody is contemplating exactly what you've described. If you negligently store or negligently entrust your firearm to someone who then runs off and uses it in a crime, you could be sued for negligence. I don't think the legislature is thinking about that at all, but who would not want if it's affordable, some kind of policy there. The second part that you mentioned is the self-defense component. So I believe the legislature is considering making these policies cover both negligent and willful acts. So negligent act would be, oops, I dropped my gun and shot the neighbor next door. Willful would be, it would be a self-defense incident. So somebody breaks into your house, you say, get out. They, don't. You willfully, you intentionally pulled the trigger and discharged it. So that would be a self-defense incident. The funny, if it weren't true part is California, the law that was passed did not cover willful acts. It only covered negligence, and they passed it in response to a mass shooting out there. So there's a mass shooting. We say everybody should have insurance to cover this, and their bill says you must have firearms insurance only for negligent acts, which, of course, a mass shooting is not a negligent act. So hopefully the Illinois task force can at least do some research into this and get it straight before they go further.
Well, and again, this is a bill that passed the House. It could still come up in the Senate when they come in during overtime this week to advance it. But there was a separate gun bill that did advance both chambers, and it deals with, litigation. And I'm not sure if you've seen this particular issue, so I'm kind of throwing this on you right now. But it essentially would say that gun manufacturers or those in the firearms industry could be held civilly liable for, quote, deceptive acts and practices and allow for lawsuits to be brought forward against anybody associated with the firearms industry. Your thoughts on that idea, and is there an insurance package or an insurance product that could make sure that firearms industry folks are not taken to the cleaners in all of this?
Sure. So that one's actually out of what I call the anti-gun playbook. That's been passed in several other states as well. And what they do is they say everybody in the, quote, firearm industry, which can be manufacturers, distributors, sellers, importers, and even retailers, if they don't have proper procedures for the safe transfer, selling, and all of that, they can be sued civilly. So most of those new laws that have been passed, and I assume Illinois would do the same, they push it down to the bureaucrats to pass what they think safe and responsible chains of commerce look like. And then once the bureaucrats have instituted those type of regulations, then you can figure out what you need to do to violate them or what might violate them. So is there insurance available for that? Again, we have no idea just what, there are, general liability policies that most manufacturers and retailers have, but you don't know if they're going to need to be tweaked to cover exactly what you said. And then even if you do, it takes, in some states, it takes a year or two before you can even get a new policy admitted in the state to cover those types of things. So, we'll just have to see what the legislature does.
Kirk Evans, U.S. LawShield, final thoughts here on the idea of a task force. And again, if this passes and the governor signs it, this omnibus bill, some components would go into effect immediately. Others would just, again, set up this task force. Your final thoughts on the idea of mandating that there be some kind of insurance policy for those who own firearms?
There's what I would call some undershoot and overshoot on that. There are some folks, they're never going to take their gun out of their house. They don't plan to do anything with it. They've had it for 45 years. And, this may be the tipping point that makes them unable to afford a firearm. Probably difficult for those folks. Other folks, a first-time gun owner who's had no training and decided he's going to carry around in public, the responsible thing for that person might be to get some kind of insurance. I think we'll just have to see what the legislature does here, and hope it can cast as broad of a net as possible to make it reasonable for everybody who wants to have a gun.
Kirk Evans, U.S. LawShield. Tell us how people can find out more about the products you guys offer.
USLawShield.com.
That's pretty simple. Greatly appreciate your time as always, and we'll definitely talk again in the near future, okay?
Great. Thank you, Greg.
It is Springfield's Morning News on 92.7 WMAY, Springfield's News and Talk.